When you first started homeschooling, were you optimistic that every day would be wonderful, like all of the pictures you see of homeschooling, all the Instagram accounts that show parents and kids snuggled up on couches reading or out exploring nature, and you just thought homeschooling was the answer to all of life's questions? You were going to have amazing days, amazing years, and homeschooling would be always. If that's you, you're in for a rude awakening. I thought homeschooling would be awesome, that my kids would love it. I could make every day amazing because I'm a homeschool rock star. I am so excited to homeschool that my kids will be excited about it too. Well, I was really, really wrong. And any homeschool mom, especially the new ones who are getting started, who are really excited, they're in for a very rude awakening because they're wrong as well. Because guess what? There are going to be days, many, many days, that your kids will complain about homeschooling. They will throw massive tantrums about homeschooling. There will be tears and screaming and whining. So why does this happen? Do you have a complainer in your homeschool? I do. I have 7 kids. One of them can't talk yet, so she doesn't really count as a complainer. She does cry during school, so maybe it does count. So I have 7 kids who complain about homeschooling on a regular basis. So if you're in despair thinking that maybe it's your fault that kids hate homeschooling or they're having a really bad day, just know that you are probably not to blame. It might just be your child. They might just be having a difficult day. So I want you to just step out from under the weight of all of that guilt, because sometimes your kids will complain about homeschooling. It happens to every homeschool parent. There are days that are less than ideal. There are days that are just downright terrible, where you question everything about your decision to homeschool and you wonder why you are putting yourself and your children through this torture. Why does this happen? Why do your kids complain about homeschooling? Why? Because learning is challenging. Sure, it's fun. Kids are naturally very curious. It's very exciting to see them have those light bulb moments where they learn something new. It's fun to follow their interest and help them learn things and just really help them explore and dive in deeply to their passions. But you know what? Sometimes it's really hard, and sometimes a concept, for whatever reason, is just difficult for that child, and they complain about it, and they throw a fit about it. And think about it. What about you? Have you ever had to do something that was difficult that you just didn't really want to do that day? You complained about it. Yeah, we may not have thrown a tantrum on the floor, kicking and screaming, even though some of us may have wanted to, but you still complained about it. And your kids will too. They will still complain about difficult tasks. And that doesn't mean that somehow you've done something wrong in your homeschool, that you're a homeschool failure, or that something isn't working. If you thought homeschooling was the ultimate answer and that you would have just perfect family bonds, sibling bonds, everyone would get along, everything would be beautiful, nope, you're wrong, because your kids are going to argue with you at times. There will be times that they refuse to do school in any form, even if it's just going on a nature walk. You think, surely this will be fun. Nope. I've had kids kicking and screaming about all the fun unit studies and field trips that I've planned. And I thought, well, this will be amazing today. No. It was terrible that day, and it doesn't make any sense. They might even lay on the floor and just cry about schooling because they can't remember the answer to 1 + 1. And they just lay there and they just cry and scream because they can't figure it out. So it's going to happen. If it hasn't happened yet, count yourself fortunate because it's coming. So you need to prepare yourself. You may have researched curriculum and chosen something that you really love. You've put in lots of hours planning. You've spent lots of time pulling together all these great resources, printing, laminating, cutting things out. You have all these wonderful literature books. You've set up a homeschool workspace that is colorful and beautiful. You've gotten inspiration off of Pinterest and Instagram, and you've started your homeschool year. Well, within a day or a few, you will probably have mutiny at some point. There's been homeschool years where on day 1, my kids just mutiny on me, and we do not have a good first week. And it is really discouraging. There are other times where things just start off great, and I think it's going to be a perfect year. My kids are loving everything that I've chosen. All my planning and curriculum choosing has paid off. Everything is perfect, and then a few weeks in, everything falls apart. So it happens to all of us. All homeschool moms can relate. We have all gone through this with our kids, where they throw complete fits about learning and they're just not enjoying homeschool. So Know that we're all going through this. We've all had face-offs with little kids who refuse to do school, who refuse to go on field trips, they refuse to do anything fun, who just argue with everything that we say. You might feel that they have a personal mission to make everyone dislike school as much as they do. It is really challenging. This is not failure on your part. This does not mean that you are not cut out to homeschool, that homeschooling will not work for your children. There's just going to be some complaining, and you're going to have to learn how to cope with the complaining, how to combat the complaining, and how to overcome that. So this is something that a lot of homeschool moms don't like to talk about. We don't like to admit that there are days that our kids really, really, really don't want to homeschool and don't cooperate at all. And we definitely don't want to admit that there are some days that we don't want to homeschool either. It's not something that we feel comfortable ever telling to people who don't homeschool. And even among other homeschool moms, we somehow have this fear, there's a stigma about admitting that some days things don't go well. But you know what? It's true. I'm admitting it. Over the 8 years that I've homeschooled, we have so many days that are just terrible, and I wonder why I am doing this. So I will make another video. In my next video, I'm going to talk about what can you do with kids who are complaining about homeschooling, because it will happen if it hasn't happened yet, or if you're brave enough to admit that it has already happened several times, know that you are not alone. But don't allow yourself to bear the guilt and frustration of that, because it may not be something that is totally your fault. There are lots of factors that cause this complaining, and so you need to just not blame yourself. You don't need to blame homeschooling, because anyone who's a parent who, even if they don't homeschool, they have really difficult days with their kids, where their kids do not cooperate with anything, no matter how much fun that thing may be. Maybe it's just a fun family vacation and their kid is throwing a fit the entire time and it doesn't make any sense. So just know it's not necessarily about homeschooling. They are kids and they will throw fits, and there are days where you will want to join them, and learning is challenging, so be prepared that there will be some complaining. So just give yourself some grace and know it's not you. Learning is hard. You need to grow, your kids need to grow, and you can do that together, and I'll give you some tips for doing that. But just give yourself and your kids grace and know that it will happen, and it is okay to admit that some days are really, really hard homeschool days, and you will have lots of those. So be watching for the next part where I talk about what you can do with your little complainers. There are some great resources and great tips that will help you kind of stop the complaining or get to the root cause of the complaining and how to kind of move forward, because it will happen and it is really discouraging. Okay, so if you want to make sure that you don't miss the tips in the next video, be sure and subscribe below. That video will be up next week, so you can get some great tips about what you can do with your little complainers.